Hey guys, and welcome back to Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Not quite true. We've only seen 2 of the playable characters head on over there thus far, but who knows, maybe we'll be able to make it a hat-trick by the end of this part. We're now taking control of Frank, who you may remember from the second part as being both Wendy's brother and Stephen's uncle. So Flame, what can we expect from Mr. Franco over here?
Well, first things first, the music playing right now is called Carry Me Back to Her Arms, which is Frank's character theme. And it's probably my favourite song on the soundtrack. It's got such a distinct vocal style to it that just so hard hitting. It's a song about a lost lover, which kind of, you'll see more about that as we see more from Frank. But he basically works on this farm, and Reese I think he's like a young apprentice. He's a youngster he's got working for him.
Nothing you can do about it, son. I'm doing a good job. I'm working hard.
Well, I have to say, I think with that whole song, I have to say it did sound really beautiful. I think the reason it's got such power is because it seems, to me at least, to be pretty much an all-male choir, which always has a very distinctive sound.
It's got that sort of deep weight to the vocal, hasn't it? It's just so much, so powerful, especially given the themes we've had so far have been feminine voices mostly, like the song we had in Wendy's chapter, The Morning Tree and All of My Birds. Those were like softer vocals, so now we've kicked over to Frank and he's got the built-in male vocal.
It's very fitting, I feel.
Oh man, those flowers on the ground look like the fireflies for a second there. So what's the deal with Reese then? I kind of garnered that he'd spent time in prison and was, I don't know, just trying to start a new life for himself out here. Is he a big character, so to speak, in the role of other people's lives?
He's only really a minor character. I believe he's like an ex-offender or someone like that, but like you do really get the vibe of he's trying to better himself to a certain degree. Which I suppose it kind of is interesting having the youngster character come in now, because all the other ones have been like grown adults and all the main characters are grown adults. So to just get this little feel from the teenagers, you know, it's just that little extra bit of perspective.
Yeah.
Can you see the observatory from there?
That's over the ridge, just past the windmill. You want to live near the station in case you need a quick getaway?
Something like that.
Now, this exchange between the two of these here, I kind of see this as a cleverly done way of relating the two of them, because to a certain extent they're both sort of outcasts a little bit, because Frank, we sort of get the vibe that he's not on the best terms with Stephen, and Stephen's obviously quite significant. Like, he's with Kate now, and you know, like, so he's quite important, and Frank's sort of pushed to the side there. You can tell just from the dialogue here that there's other people who are not that big on him either, so that he's the one who the villagers sort of rejected, and Kate's the one who doesn't fit in because she's an American scientist in a small English village. There's kind of this unity by difference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. I love the way your guidance light actually pushes the grains. Is that what they are, Richard?
Grains of wheat, yes.
Sorry, you're the smartest one out of all of us, so I go to you first. Because you're not the elder, you're the second youngest here, so...
I mean, to be fair, I think it would be grains of wheat, but I'm not a farmer. I don't really know my botany all that well.
That's one for the TV Tropes page, I believe. Anywho, what can we expect out of Frank's chapter, mate? A lot of, conversing with Wendy, I'm hoping for here.
Well, one of the main themes of Frank's chapter is he's got some stuff that he kind of needs to come to terms with, and that will be told to us soon enough, but that's kind of his thing. Like, he's a bit of an outcast, at least among the people who he was once close with. So yeah, that's essentially where he fits into this little community.
Magic Light just taking us on walkabouts here? Give us a plain direction.
One thing I would like to address is, in the intro of this part, you mentioned like playable characters of we're taking control of Frank. We're not explicitly taking control of like the characters in the chapters here. That's one of the ambiguous themes that we don't actually know who we are.
Ah, okay.
That doesn't explicitly tell us. The implication is that these little balls of light are the characters' stories, but that again, that's not really confirmed. It's just if you sort of read into it a bit, you sort of pick up on the characteristics. Like Frank, he's darting backwards and forwards. He's a little bit unsure of himself, and so that's represented in the way the little ball of light is. I guess it's a sort of lack of confidence in moving along, I'll probably put it.
The hemorrhaging I'm seeing in the birds. But Stephen's wrong. This isn't an attack. It's a byproduct of the attempt to communicate.
Ah, that changes things up significantly.
Smarter.
Whatever is going on here, is that inherently like malicious, or is it just like a consequence?
It's like, imagine an alien race that exudes light so bright that we physically cannot look at it, even with our most advanced kind of like eye shielding devices, and they just want to say hi. You know, they're not being aggressive in any way, they just want to make contact, but they can't without killing us. Maybe this is something along those lines.
And I mean, I suppose it takes the whole narrative away from it being the Rapture, almost. Like, it begins to throw in the questioning of, is this meant to be actually the religious end of the world, or is it something that should never have happened in the first place?
Well, it still conforms to the religious ideology of the Rapture,
Yes.
as humans would put it, but again, we're seeing things from the human perspective here.
Call in on 9. This is Lost Cowboy looking for anyone out there. Hello? Breaker 1-9. Breaker Travelin Sherlock. Charlie, you out there? Over.
There's a very lonely sort of camper van here.
Hello?
The fact that it's so small, that looks a little bit claustrophobic to a certain degree, you know. I suppose this is like his work caravan, you know, he just stays out here when he's working on the farm or whatever, but still.
Their death warrant my own family.
Jesus.
I'm aware of that. I'll still be here when you drop the fucking stuff.
No.
Don't you lecture me about sacrifice, you spineless little shit.
Stupid
If
bastards!
you're so full of ideas, you come here and try dealing with it.
I'll deal with it, Stephen. I'll take a gun and I'll shoot the noise.
The time when we had a choice is over. Tell them to do it.
But like Frank getting angry at just this conversation he's overhearing, that kind of tells you a lot about his relationship with Stephen. Although Stephen, it's not sure whether he's acting in the best interest in here. That's going back to the old idea of the moral dilemma of, like, in Stephen's position where he's got this contact who can theoretically just take out the entire village. Does he do that? Do we need to find out more about the pattern as to whether that's a necessity?
I mean, you know, it could be the future of the UK and then the entire world on the line. You know, is that a risk you're willing to take? You are basically God at that point in time.
Yeah, I mean, that actually falls into a very famous dilemma. I can't remember the exact name of the dilemma, and it's frustrating me that I can't. But it's the whole thing of, say you are at a railway tracks, you've got one person strapped to one side of it, and you've got 5 people strapped to the other side of it. You can switch the track. Well, you can switch the track to go either way, so that the train will go over either. But you cannot save everybody. What do you choose to do? Do you choose to be responsible for the death of the one person, or do you choose to be the cause of the death of multiple people? And it's a case of, with the multiple people, are you able to remove yourself a little bit more because they are a bit more amorphous? Like, when it's a collection of people, there's not a single personality.
Yeah, very
Whereas
much
when
so.
there's one person, you are specifically killing that person. But then also, do you want to save more lives, and can you live with the fact that you have killed a single person? And it's an awful dilemma, one that I don't think anybody would like to have to make a decision in.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that is the decision that Stephen is having to make of, do I kill everyone that I know and love in my home village to save the entirety of the country or the world? if that is indeed what is the problem.
Yeah, there's a saying that's like kind of tangentially related to what you're on about here. It's like, the death of one person is a tragedy, a million is a statistic, you know?
Yes.
During that conversation just then, we saw Frank and Jeremy just... I think Jeremy's trying to persuade Frank back to the church, whereas Frank, he's got this sort of bitterness towards God. And what that's sort of hinting at is the bit of background there that Frank's wife passed.
Yeah,
and,
I got that, yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, he's still coming to terms with that. You know, it's just quite one of these things that's quite difficult situation for Jeremy to be in, given that, you know, he's got this blind faith in God at this point in time. And it's kind of a, I wouldn't say denial, but just that difficult thing to go through his mind that maybe this all-loving God has caused this person some pain.
I mean, that is obviously one of the most difficult theological questions of if God is meant to be all-powerful and all-loving, why do people die? Because that ultimately causes a lot of harm to the people left behind, because it is just ridiculously difficult. When people suffering from loss, you can become quite resentful towards the idea of a God, because it's just like, well, where the frick were you? And if you're religious, you are just like, that's a question I can't answer, and it's awful.
Sorry, I was just kind of taken aback there for a moment, yeah. I mean, it really would make you question your faith.
Yeah.
Interesting you were talking about, like, animals earlier and that, there not being any.
Oh.
Never mentioned anything about them sickening yesterday.
Oh, I can hear flies buzzing around, that's never a good sign.
Fine. I woke up this morning and the whole lot had gone.
They bolted.
Tell me, Charlie, have you heard any birds today?
Maybe you should ask Wendy.
I've not really been paying any attention.
That sister of mine reckons they're dropping out the sky all round the Wrekin.
See, it's this sort of thing that's gonna be terrifying to process, isn't it? Like, you just sort of seeing all your animals just fall, and you got no answer, but you also got all the people freaking out, and it's one of the things that it's maybe not the first tip-off that something's wrong, but then you have that on top of it, and I suppose it's like overwhelming more than you could possibly imagine at this point, you know?
There's got to be provision for this.
Well, I mean, it would be particularly overwhelming for a farmer, as Frank seems to be, because you invest quite a lot in your livestock, and seeing all your animals just perish would be quite traumatising, really, because it's your livelihood, but also you do become quite... Well, not everybody, I suppose, becomes quite emotionally invested in their animals, but they kind of do.
The ones you don't send to the slaughter, at the very least.
Yeah.
I love this lighting right now in this particular moment. It's got that sort of bronzy sepia tint over it, and it just looks so pretty, like the sundown kind of time.
You could take sundown to mean a myriad of things, really, especially given this context.
There you go.
Oh, thanks, Frank. That should get it out of the way. I don't know what happened. It just died on me.
Please don't say it like that.
I don't need to hear the word died anymore in this game.
Just put petrol in it as well. Robert's taken the other car into town.
Not to take you all out of the experience, but I love their accents in this game.
Yeah, it just feels so fitting, doesn't it? You know, you think of the country village and you hear these people talking before they talk, really, don't you?
Where is Shropshire in regards to the geography of the UK?
Oh, God, give me a minute.
It's sort of like West Midlands sort of area.
He soon will.
Oh, not if he carries on drinking the way he is.
Right. Yes, so it's, yeah, it's in definitely West Midlands. It's, it was on the border of Wales, essentially.
Yeah, I can see why it's so countrified then.
Yeah, and it's right next to Wolverhampton. Well, basically, the centre of it is Shrewsbury. But yeah, you are dealing with that accent of, I've got a combine harvester and I'll give you the key.
Yeah, they're like, why? Stuff like that.
Well, YA is more Geordie, to be fair. That's Northern.
Well, what I said was, well, alright. I just said it really fast.
Oh. I heard YA. I suppose it's because my ear is attuned to Geordie rather than Shrewsbury.
Alright, let's look at our next Doom message.
Frank, for God's sake, stop!
All I've got left is my tractor. Keep back, you bastard!
This tractor is my friend.
You stay away. Someone's got to warn them. Someone's got to stop it.
You can't stop it. You have to understand. You hate me, I get that. But if we don't do this, it's not just the valley, it's everything, Frank. It's all gone.
Gone to the Rapture.
You
Dun.
can't stop it! Jesus!
You take one step closer. I'll bash your bloody skull in, I swear to God.
All right, I'm going.
Right, he really doesn't like Stephen.
See Lizzie. Tell her to get out. There's still time. Please.
I'm wondering why. Like, have we gotten an explanation yet?
You can save her yourself.
I think there was that line when he was talking to Kate that, like, is between me and the cow, so it seems to be one of them things that's sort of hush-hush, not talked about. But one thing that's interesting is that Frank's last name is Appleton, so, like, his sister Wendy, that would have been her maiden name, but that's the name that Stephen's taken, so it's kind of... I'm not sure exactly how this works out, that Stephen ended up taking his mother's maiden name. I don't know whether there's some more things unsaid about, like, his father Eddie. Because Eddie was a war vet, but other than that we really don't know anything about Eddie, other than that Wendy misses him and, like, you know, again, there's that layer of grief. Everyone's dealing with grief with this game, that's this kind of thing going on, it's dark.
Yeah, well, it's the typical, oh, look at this idyllic countryside setting, but there's murder beneath it. Why do you think, like, Midsummer Murders and such is so popular?
Well, it's not even murder, really, is it? It's just people dying for whatever reasons.
Or just, like, plain vanilla, like, universal rating intrigue or mystery. It's just, it's universally enticing, I suppose. Where are we now, Flame?
Having a little look around this place. These books on the shelves, I believe there's like a trophy for finding all of them. Them particular ones, I don't know what the particular brand is. You know, the ones that have got the colourful fronts with a picture of the bird. Finding all of them ones, and you get a trophy for that. I think it's a shame that they don't, like, have more information in them, like things that you can, you know, read through for more lore.
Oh yeah.
I suppose that's one of the things. It might have worked, it might not have, because I think this game is very much a deal of tell you the story rather than, you know, read it out to you. Or you read it, more specifically.
How's your sister, Frank? We've not spoken since the funeral.
Ah, I see. Well, listen, I did rather wonder if you might do me a bit of a favour and check in on her, see if she's all right.
Dr. Wade, if they drop the bomb, there'd be no left but cockroaches and Wendy Boyles.
Oh, damn.
He does not like her.
Oh, I like that sentence. Oh, that's a good one.
Went walkabout sometime last night. Now it appears Mrs. Boughton has done the same.
People going somewhere.
People trying to get away.
Yes, that's the thing. I've also got a surgery full of people with nosebleeds and headaches. The council are saying influenza, but
Influenza does not give you nosebleeds and headaches, okay?
I just wondered.
No, I mean, influenza's not fun, and I suppose if it gets really bad, then potentially it could give you a nosebleed because it's dealing with your nasal passage, but it's not typical of influenza. Not typical at all.
More typical of Ebola, really.
Well, don't really know about that one, but I haven't really researched the symptoms of Ebola.
Clarification, I take all my knowledge from iDubbbz's videos, so if it's wrong, blame him.
Well, we've got to find out one way. But the little bit of subtext there, and I'm going to spell this out because it's kind of put aside one way, is that Frank had the hospital bed there, which was where his wife Mary had died. What kind of is the contention that happened in relation to that is that Mary was incredibly ill, and I believe she was euthanized. And so you got people like Wendy who've got that absolute total moral opposition to that. And then there's Jeremy, who I believe was involved with that. And that's why there was that talk between Jeremy and Wendy in the last chapter of like Wendy finally coming to terms and forgiving him.
Ah.
The radio telescope in Tower 6 is burned out.
And that would also essentially make sense as to why, well, not entirely make sense, but it might also work of Frank and Stephen being so against each other because potentially Stephen did something to Frank's wife before she passed, or got him in trouble, or whatever.
Maybe. I think with Stephen and Frank, it seems like there's been a bit of bad blood for quite a while. That's just the sort of impression I get between them. And I think that was kind of just... It is the sort of way with these villages where everyone's really tight-knit, that if there is a bit of a conflict, it's sort of, you know, pushed under the rug. Like, they try not to talk about it because, for the most part, this is like a community. This is like everyone's friends with everyone. So that's sort of a black mark against them, and they don't really want to dwell on that.
I'm not a fan of those sirens in the background, I can tell you that much.
Well, that's all the different sort of radio noises and that emit from the little orb. You notice as we get close to it, they get much louder, and that's kind of a thing that some people used to read into this, that maybe this is like left behind radio notes or something that is here to tell whoever we are exploring this what had happened.
Makes sense.
And that's why it's sort of leading us through all these different character perspectives.
Hell, it could even be the virus, quotation marks, itself telling us.
Possibly. If you think back to one of the, I think it was the radio messages that had said that it was Kate not sure whether it was intending to cause harm or something. There is this idea that maybe there's this degree of regret from the pattern, because maybe it didn't know that it was hurting these people, and now it kind of wants to tell its story. Maybe, you know, come to terms with it as a kind of confession, maybe.
Yeah, well, that ties back into the religious theme, so definitely.
Hearing all the like emergency things, there seems to be like a little sound cue when you're getting closer and closer to the like ending spot, because you notice in Jeremy's chapter we had the church bells going, which was prompting you to go check out the church. Now we're hearing the emergency warning alarms, and that's prompting us to go up here.
I'm glad I've never had to live through something like this, like e.g. the Blitz, for example.
It is just an awful period of history. For many reasons, obviously, but it just... From everything that I've ever learned about the period of the Blitz, it just does not seem like a pleasant time to live through, and for all the ways the world is going wrong at the minute, and despite the fact that there are some major atrocities taking place in the world at the minute, where it basically still is like what was happening in the Blitz, at least in terms of the UK and America and so on, we're doing alright. Despite everything going wrong.
For the most part, yeah.
And if you're listening to this, then maybe...
Now this is kind of quite telling about what had been going through Frank's mind.
It's a beautiful morning.
I suppose.
I wasn't there when Mary died. I was too scared. So I went to the pub instead. What will be, Frank, she said.
This is kind of, he had that preemptive grief, really, didn't he? Like, he knew what was happening, he knew that she was so unwell and she was, you know, being finished off, like, artificially, but he just couldn't face up to it. And that's where his kind of redemption's coming in here, like that he's realised that he's done wrong by not being there for Mary, so he sort of wants to face it now that it's happening to him along with the rest of the village. And that's kind of where the alarms was going, like he was letting everyone know what was happening.
Well, you got redeemed in the end, Frank. Take solace in that, I guess.
Yeah.
Damn, man. You can hear them going off in the background.
I like the way that the golden lights just linger that little bit afterwards, you know.
It is just really, really beautiful and really poignant as well.
So if I was to hazard a guess, and just to clarify, Mary was Frank's wife, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe he's angry at Stephen because Stephen, like Richie kind of intimated, had something to do with Mary's euthanization, and maybe he just resents the fact that Stephen had the courage to do it?
Maybe. Like I say, I'm not sure whether that bad blood came about then or earlier, but it's a possibility there was some kind of connection there.
Well, hopefully we get more context and maybe even see some of Stephen's backstory soon. In the meantime, I just guess we gotta walk the story path.
This one can be a little bit more difficult to navigate because there's little parts where you could end up walking into a tree for 5 minutes before you realise what's going on.
That would be a really awkward thing to talk about when you reach heaven, or the opposite, I suppose.
I got lost on the stairway to heaven. How the fuck did you do that?
Well, you made it a fucking countryside, not actual stairs for a start. Jeez. Alright guys, that'll do it for this installment of Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Please join us next time. Bye for now.